Hello, my name's Tracy McCarthy and I work for the East Midlands Service Hub as an early years service officer. And this is my last in the series of the 3 R's. We've done a session on reduce, we've completed a session on reuse, and today is going to be all about recycling. So why do we need to cycle? So if we recycle paper, the different sorts of papers can be recycled, and in most areas your recycling bin will be different. In where I live in the East Midlands, we just have one bag and we put all our recycling into it. Other people have different bags for different things. So it's encouraging our children, when they've finished using items that needs to go into the recycling bin, is to actually ask them to do that, so they get into the routine of that. So we need to recycle paper, we need to recycle plastic. If we don't recycle the plastic, soon the world will be taken over by plastic, and plastic takes so long to biodegrade. I'm just going to read this. Friends of the Earth says, if we carry on using as much plastic as we are doing, and it goes into the sea, by the year 2050, there'll be more plastic in our sea than fish, which is very frightening. And it's also frightening for the fish that we eat, because obviously some of those fishes may have ate some plastic. So anything that's plastic, so your plastic bottles, your plastic yogurt pots, your plastic things that go onto the food. Also remember, these always have to be washed out. If they're not washed out, sometimes it can contaminate the rest of our recycling, and it can sometimes be hard to use. And that could be a nice job for your children to do. If you get them a washing up bowl and some soapy water, they can spend quite a long time just washing up the plastic recycling. It's very safe, and it's nice playing with water, and we're looking at other things they're learning, like volume and capacity. It's got lots of play values, and it's also helping you out as a parent. If recycling aluminium takes a lot less energy than recycling tin or making more tin. So it's better if we recycle aluminium. It takes 95% less energy to recycle than to make. So again, your cans, drink bottle, drink cans, anything that's made of aluminium, you can recycle. Possibly things like these are made out of aluminium, and you'll soon see if things are aluminium, because if you put a magnet next to them, they won't stick. So please try, and this is something that I had for Christmas. That was I'm now using it as a container because I find it so useful. But when something happens to that, I'll be putting it into the recycling. Glass. It's very important that we recycle glass, and any sorts of glass, because to make it out of raw material, it's hard to believe, but in some parts of the world, certain sands are running out. So we need to be able to make those, to stop doing that by recycling. Because recycling, it stops us having to use raw materials. So how can we encourage our children to recycle? Well, we've said a few things, but I've got a little song here that I'm going to sing to you that you may be able to use, and it goes like this. Pick up the plastic and put it in, put it in. Pick up the plastic and put it in the recycling bin. Pick up the paper and put it in, put it in, put it in. Pick up the paper and put it in in the recycling bin. Pick up the aluminium and put it in, put it in. Pick up the aluminium and put it in the recycling bin. Then we've got pick up the glass and put it in, put it in, put it in. Pick up the glass and put it in the recycling bin. That's just a song that I picked up from somewhere. Obviously, where glass is concerned, we do need to sort of put a bit of a health and safety warning there. Obviously, you wouldn't need children alone with glass. The children will be looking at these 3 arrows. So they'll be looking at reduce, reuse, recycle. So it will be going around in this circle. And if we do that more and more, we will be saving a lot of energy, and it will be a lot better for our environment when our children are getting older. Feeding the birds is something that's extremely good for the environment, because the birds will eat the insects that we need instead of using pesticides to get rid of insects. So this is a very, very simple bird feeder that I've made. You can, if you go onto sort of YouTube and different things, they're very elaborate, but I just thought keep it simple. So you would tie this on a string, like I've tied that one, but it hasn't obviously got anything in it. But all you do is make 2 holes at the side, put the stick through, and then make another little hole above it where the bird can feed from. Birds need feeding when they're young, because they need to learn to fly, and the mums need to, and dads need to be able to look after them. Particularly in the winter, it's important to feed our birds, because they need that fat to keep them safe during the winter. So by making, oh sorry, it's coming out. So by making a bird feeder, and you can hang this on if you've not got an outside, which you could always probably take it to somewhere like grandma's or something if they've got an outside area, or you could hang it on a balcony, or just a little backyard. You've not got to have a lot of room. And the purchase is just a stick that I picked up when I was out walking. So just any stick, or you could use, if you wanted to, something like lolly sticks, because again, I can imagine most children have lollies, and just not quite so long. But then it's actually a nice talking point during summer and winter to be looking at with your children at what birds are coming for different foods that you might have. Bread's not always the best for birds. We tend to think it is, but it isn't. So, but most places will sell quite reasonable bird food, or it might be that when you've cut off the rind of your bacon or something, that you put things like that in a little bowl. Also remember that birds need water as well. So if you've got a container that you can use that's probably heavy, or you could probably put a stone in the bottom of a something like this container. This has got holes in, so it's not, the size is nice. But when you're feeding the birds, or you are putting food out, or water, just be very careful where you place it, because obviously cats are their main predators, and we don't really want anybody getting any birds getting killed while they're getting food from our table. So that's another thing. And as I say, birds, birds will eat lots of different sorts of seeds. So that's something that I'm sort of thinking that we need to be thinking about. Also, planting flowers is extremely good for the environment. Now, I've got grandchildren, and we made together this little garden. Now, my granddaughter helped me make it, and she called it our fairy garden. So what we've done is we've made a very, very small scale role play area here. She's got fairies in here. We planted some plants. She's got a little bird nest. But I've also got grandsons, and when they come round, they put their dinosaurs in, or stones, or different things like that. That will help the environment. Then another idea that I've used is so to help the pollution in the environment is I've made a little, this is mint, so a little herb garden out of a plastic bottle. So all you do is cut it off. My partner's done this for me, and he's used a Stanley knife. And the reason I'd say to use something really sharp when the children are not about is it makes it less jagged when they're putting their fingers into plant. You can actually also attach these to the wall, so it could be that you made a bird feeder in the same vein, so more birds could get on it at the same time. But this is just mint from my garden, and I've just took a cutting and put it in there. That helps with carbon dioxide in the environment. Another thing that we've looked at is we don't always have to plant plants in holders that we think we should. We've not got to go out and buy expensive flower pots, and sometimes those expensive flower pots could be made out of material that we'd rather not be using anyway. So I think this is an old Wellington of mine. Now I haven't put holes in the bottom, I just sort of just shake it a little bit now and again, but you could drill holes in the bottle and then plant. This has just come out of my garden, so I'm just going to smooth some of the flowers don't look particularly good, but just planted it in there. I've also got a children's Wellington outside, so anything like Wellingtons, anything like these sorts of things, you can just make holes in and put. If you can put compost on, if you can, it's better for the environment if you use compost that hasn't got peat in because of the peat mounds. So it would be really useful if you could get that. And I actually got some from Aldi the other day. Also, you can use things like, and this is an old biscuit tin from Christmas. Well, of course, you could make yourself a little adventure garden in there with your children, a nice little small scale role play. I'd probably suggest you put a few holes in the bottom if you can, but obviously you'd have to ensure that it wasn't sharp. And it can just be something that during this time the children can just go out with. You don't have to watch the tin because it can actually sometimes go a little bit rusty as well. But that's actually all helping the environment, because you're making fresh air and the plants rejuvenate that air as well. Also with your plants, there's lots of species of bees that are becoming less and less and a little bit extinct. And so bees like certain plants. So just got a few here that I wrote down that when I was reading about bees, the different sorts of bees, very often they like foxgloves. So they're quite a common plant and they're quite easy to grow, and very often you can get cuttings from them off of neighbours because they are quite a common plant. Crocuses, which when you're thinking about is spring, so that's when they're just starting to come out. So crocuses obviously are very important to our bees. We've also got marigolds, which again you very often see marigold plants in supermarkets, and they're very easy and harder to grow. So that's the sort of thing you could be growing with your children. Because remember, we're trying to get that carbon dioxide into the air to support the environment. A note of warning: please be careful about any pesticides that you use, because we're doing all this work. So try if we can to not use lots and lots of chemicals. And there is lots of pesticides out there that say that they're useful for the environment. So that's can be very useful. And things like cosmoses, which are those big plants that sort of really flow in the wind. So that gives you lots and lots of time to that the bees can sort of land on them. It's also very nice to sit in the garden on a quiet day, and it's very good for mental health. And it's the sort of thing that we can do with our children. We can lay on the floor and just look at the clouds and talking about the shapes of the clouds, or we can look. At the moment where I'm standing, I can see butterflies around some of the plants in my garden. It's really nice and soothing to do that. And as a lot of us have been locked in for quite a number of times, having some outdoor space is really important. And if you've not got outdoor space, you can go on, and you're lucky enough to have parks near you. You can go on the parks and notice all of these things. That's just one way that we can keep our environment. They're just a few ways that we can keep our environment clean and recycle all at the same time. So just to recap, we need to be singing recycle songs. We need to be doing things for the environment. This is something that I made last night, actually, while I was watching the telly, and you wouldn't expect children. This is just a plastic bottle. I've put a few things in it to make it a little bit heavy so it doesn't fall over. And it was just ripping the wrapping paper up into small bits. Now, if you've got very young children, they'll need bigger bits, because I've got the fine motor skills to actually stick this on and make a pattern. I've used PVA glue because PVA glue, it's easier to spread, and then you can actually cover it in PVA glue to ensure that it makes it slightly waterproof. And I've just put a couple of flowers in, actually, out of my mother's garden, and a bow around the top. And that's the sort of thing that would be nice that you could give for a gift on Mothering Sunday, or any time to children can do for their grandparents or for an elderly neighbour, or they could make you one. So bear in mind that you can do all of that. And if you do want to plant things, you can always let them decorate their plant pot before they plant it. Things like hyacinths are quite nice to do, because they really need to just put them in a dark cupboard for a while, and they'll soon begin to grow, and they're not normally given around Christmas time. So it's a gift that you could give that wouldn't actually cost so much. If you go into commercial stores, they normally cost a lot of money, but the actual balls themselves you can get from any shops, or lots of products sell them as well. Thinking about wood as well, we don't really want to be throwing our wood away, because again we need to recycle it as much as possible. But if you've got something, this looks like quite a nice frame, possibly to you on the screen, but unfortunately one of my grandchildren had a really good time colouring all over this, so it's made it look a little bit unsightly. So what I'm hoping to do is get one of the grandchildren to cover them in the bits of newspaper, so it can look like we've got a new frame. And that again is when the children have their photos took at school. If you or you print them off yourselves, it's something that you can children can be very proud of, that they've made a present for their friends and family. So the main thing about today's session is just making sure that we talked about reducing all our energy, and we talked about ensuring that we don't use more water than we need to. Very often plastic bottles can be very good for if you want to water your plants, and all you need to do is to tip it upside down, take the lid off, make some holes in your bottle, and then fill it with water. And if you're going away somewhere, then you've not got to worry quite so much about your plants being watered, so you could keep in the environment, sort of looking after the environment, and the environment are getting all these lovely natural resources going up into them. So that's the end of today's session, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon on other couple of webinars. But thank you very much. And just remember, shall we sing that song for one last time, just so you can remember it? I won't sing it all. So we'll sing, pick up the plastic and put it in, put it in, put it in. Pick up the plastic and put it in the recycling bin. Pick up the paper and put it in, put it in, put it in. Pick up the paper and put it in the recycling bin. Put up the glass, pick up the glass and put it in, put it in, put it in. Pick up the glass and put it in the recycling bin. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you managed to see the other two sessions as well. Thank you very much.